Good.
All right, my friends, spring has sprung. You can hear the birds in the air. Fishing is, hey, it's getting really, really good. And right now, in this moment, I'm getting ready to leave to go to Lake Murray, which could be pretty unbelievable. I got a feeling this tournament's gonna be pretty awesome, but I wanted to give you guys that moment to give you what I'm thinking for the month of April. You guys have seen my videos, and the reason I continue to shoot these videos for you all is because I want to give you guys up-to-date information of like, hey, if there's a new bait that I'm adding to my April collection, you know, you might learn a little something. And I always try to give a little bit of just a little bit more every single video and dialing that in. Now, before we get into the actual lure side of this, this last month has been a little bit crazy for me. Obviously, we're fishing Red Crest, obviously Cherokee having a good tournament, and then, you know, introducing my new line of clothing and collection with Magellan Outdoors I'm wearing right now. It's exclusively at Academy, dropping the new boat there at the Classic, at the Expo. A lot of new things have happened, and it's been a lot of fun. But I'm excited to get back on the water, and I'm excited to sort of dive into exactly what I think the month of April is going to bring us. So let's jump into it right now.
Let's go.
We're here in Mexico. We are in the Dominican Republic. So I'm going to tell you a couple different tips that have helped me over the years.
Wow! Unbelievable! Jacob Wheeler makes history!
Okay, so April's sort of a very unique month because I feel like April screams spawn. Okay, March is sort of your last of your major pre-spawn. This is like they're just wanting to get up there every single day. There's a few that actually did spawn in the month of March in the south, and as far north as I mean, I would say there were some fish that spawned. I know there were some fish that were trying to spawn in Gunnersville in February, late February, early March. I know there was a few bass that try to do that. But this is the thing, that is not the majority of the fish. The bass know this, okay? This is one thing that you have to understand. We as fishermen sometimes try to put them somewhere very quickly, like, oh, man, it's 2 70-degree days. Let's go. Let's hit the bank, man. They're going to be all over the bank. No, calm down. It's okay. Calm down. Now, when you start to see the trees start budding and you start hearing the birds chirp and everything's starting to green up and it's starting to give you a heads up. Everything around you is giving you the sign that Mother Nature, it is time for the bass spawn to happen. This is the bass rut, if you will. Also, it's a great time to go turkey hunting. If you have never done that, it's pretty awesome too. Now, that being said, you know, the fish, this is the time of year that I'm going to spend my time shallow. My number one bait for this time of year, this is not going to be a surprise for you, but I got a good little tidbit on this, is going to be a wacky worm. Okay, a wacky worm, stick worm, there's a lot of different ones out there. Green pumpkin is typically my bait of choice. One thing that I am going to suggest is when I'm throwing a wacky worm, I'll either throw it weightless or I'll throw it Nico style. So I either throw a real small, like Nico weight, like a 32nd in the head, or I'll throw it, and when I do that, I use that crossover ring, it's a VMC crossover ring, and I put it on there, and it sort of gives it a little bit, it's a band that basically keeps it on a little bit better. It gives you a little bit, you know, catches you a few more fish on your wacky worm. If I'm doing that Nico weighted, I will put it up parallel with the worm, like that. And now if I'm actually wacky worming, there's a little channel that I will ultimately put it perpendicular. And now I'm able to, at my hookup ratio, theoretically, as your bait is falling weightless, that fish comes up and bites that whole bait, your hook point should roll and get that good hookup ratio in the top or the side, you know, the meat of their mouth. That's the theory, that's the reason behind that. And I've had really good luck with that. Now, that being said, the hook that I use for my wacky rigs, it's a weedless wacky hook if I'm in cover. This is a brand new red line from VMC. VMC's made some really good hooks in the past, okay? Some solid hooks. They've been a price point hook. They've given a lot of people an opportunity to have quality hooks at a good price point. This is a premium hook. So if you're looking for a premium hook this spring, the red line series was helped designed by a lot of our pro staff. In addition to that, it's vanadium steel. It's TPFE coated. It doesn't flex as much, and it has it's a super sharp, sticky point has a tendency not to roll over, does a really good job, the most premium hook they've ever created. So I throw the weedless Nico in cover, and then I do throw the wacky Nico in less cover. So I'm fishing rocky banks and stuff like that. If I feel like I'm like on like more like gravelly banks and they're just sort of out like around stuff, I will throw one without a weed guard. The advantage of a weed guard is just, I mean, listen, this weed guard right here, or any wacky hook, it's not going to, you're not gonna be able to throw it in the middle of a tree and work it through there and not get hung up. So do not use that as like, all this is really going to do more than anything is it allows for you to deflect off a little piece of wood, a cable on a dock. Scenarios like that is what your weedless part of this. Because if you have a too heavy of a monofilament leader, you won't hook those fish. And if you have too light, you might as well not even have it. So that was something that was really a big deal with like developing those hooks, was doing that right there. Now, that being said, I like a weedless Nico, but your hookup ratio is, in my opinion, a little bit better if you just have a straight Nico hook, because you don't have something between you and the hook point. So that's why I use it, like, that's why I do that. Now, one bit of game, I will tell you this. I'm throwing a 7-foot medium action spinning rod right here, and this is my 600 series. I throw 8 to, well, this is actually 6, but I'll throw up to 8 to 10 pound braid is sort of where I like the lighter braid. But one thing that people don't understand, a lot of anglers don't, and it's something that I had to learn myself, is that when you decide to select your leader line, okay, what your pound test you're gonna put on your leader, okay? So I'm throwing braid to a fluorocarbon leader, which I'm using FG knot. There's a lot of different knots out there. This is the time of year you can get away with heavier line. And what I mean by that is, so this, especially in the month of April, I am going to be running the same braid that I have been all spring, but I'm gonna be throwing 12 or 14 up to 17 pound leader line. What this allows me to do is I can cast in heavier cover, set the hook and get those fish out of those places. If I see a big one, especially on places that have big fish or you're around cover, this is a great opportunity to do that, because the majority of your line, your 6 foot of the first 6 foot of your line is really what's going to be around the cover and has the best chance of breaking off. So your actual braid never really is rubbing up against most of those logs or those docks. So your leader line is very important for that. Now, if the fish are line shy, yes, you're gonna have to back down into some smaller line. But that is definitely a little tip that I've learned over the years, and it's definitely helped me in scenarios where I feel like those fish are a little heavier cover than I wanted, and I can't really throw a spinner rod, but you can up your line. So just if fish aren't line shy, try that out. Okay, so number one, that was a little bit lengthy. Number two, it's one you're gonna be like, wait a second, Wheeler, come on. So a glide bait's a great bait this time of year, but one bait that gets overlooked. What? I got a musky lure on, y'all. I got a musky. All right, this is a big one. This is actually something I've been playing around with, and I'm definitely gonna be playing around with. Actually, I'm sure I got a couple ideas for this guy right here. This is actually a floater, Rapala floating minnow. This is a size 13. This is probably what you're more used to seeing, okay? This is a size 17. This is basically, imagine, and this is something that I have played with. I feel like, all right, why with big glide baits and stuff like that always becoming a major craze, why would a big profile jerkbait around the spawn, a floating jerkbait's caught so many bass? I put this around the same thing as like a methylate worm or something like that. This is like when those fish are up there shallow, they love a floating jerkbait. You go jerk, jerk, let it come back up, let the ripples go away, jerk, jerk, and they cannot stand it. So why throw a bigger jerkbait over this one? This is the reason why. The bigger the bait, the more the drawing power. Okay, so I could throw this jerkbait right here. Same thing with a glide bait or anything else, swim bait or whatever. I could throw this bait right here 10 feet away from a bass, and I throw the same bait 10 feet away from a bass. He might not even go to see what's going on over here. Where I feel like I can have more fish come off the bed, and they're gonna come look at this guy because he's so big and gaudy. He has more drawing power. So that's why I'm playing around with the number 17. I only think you can probably get these on Rapala.com probably, but don't buy them all, because I seriously, this is something I feel like is going to trend, and you guys heard it here first. Big floating jerk baits, I'm telling you, I'm calling it now. I'm calling it right here on the channel right now. a big Rapala floater is coming back. Old school, but that's a good one right there. I was contemplating telling you on that one. I promise you, I was like, I'm giving it up. I'm giving it up. So, okay, now now sort of transition. You guys know I'm a jig guy. I love throwing a jig. And one thing, I tell you this is the time that I'm putting the jig away. You're like, wait, what? I'm putting the jig down. Now, if I'm flipping and pitching now, it's gonna be more creature bait based, okay? So like a beaver style, some sort of creature bait, brush hog style, whatever you might think. Now, the one thing that I'm going to recommend, if you are Texas rigging during this spawn, unless you're in heavy cover like bushes and stuff like that, downsize your weight. This is the time of year, okay, when I'm flipping with a Texas rig, that I could literally have a ½ ounce weight on and go down a bank with a beaver style bait, creature bait, whatever you really like to flip. And I could get 1 bite or 2 bites, right? And I'm like, man, I can switch to a ½ ounce weight and go straight back through that exact stretch I just fished with a ½ ounce weight with the exact same creature bait and catch 3 or 4 behind myself. I've seen it happen. This is the time of year you do have to slow down and pick cover apart. Because when you think about it, okay, you have a log right here, okay? Bass won't spawn on the log, he'll spawn away from it. So you have to sometimes pitch up there, you have to be patient, let it fall down there, let it soak, pick it up. That's why them old timers will whoop you this time of year. Because they'll throw that shaky head or that wacky one up there and they'll be so methodical. They'll catch every bass down the bank. Where, you know, a lot of us, especially myself, I got to tell myself, slow down, Jacob, calm down, because those fish. But definitely, huge tip, go to smaller weights this time of the year, just because I feel like, hey, you're going to generate more bites. You're going to force yourself to slow down. That slower fall generates more bites typically. And the bass typically are spawning shallower, which is why I feel like that slower fall just gives them more time. They come up there and just more natural presentation. Definitely a top recommendation. Now, as far as like hook I'm throwing, typically in my creature baits, I am going to throw the Hybrid Duty flipping hook, the PTF coated, the Redline series. That hook's really bad to the bone. What I like about a straight shank, personally for me, now obviously if you're flipping like a tube or something like that, you're gonna be more like a wide gap, but I like a straight shank. That's what works for me, and I've never had any issue with that. So if I'm bed fishing, I'm throwing a straight shank. If I'm just flipping around, I'm throwing a straight shank. That's my preference right there. So that is number 3. All right, number 4, can't go wrong, a frog. Okay, a frog's really good around cover. It's really good when that water warms up. It really start throwing this high 50s, low 60s. They're really good on a frog. And with those big females, what happens is when those big females start to pull up shallow and you have a lot of cover around like bank grass or even wood, like willow grass, stuff like that, a frog just tends to get a bigger bite because those big females are normally around the areas that they're spawning where the males are spawning. But sometimes a frog is so like, just the presence of it makes them want to like, they have to go up there and see what's going on, boom, blow up on it. So like the jerk bait is more like not as much cover. This is more cover oriented. I could go throw this just down the bank, a couple lay down logs, you know, just some like little stuff. This guy's more designed for fishing around the cover, bushes, grass, lily pads, all that stuff that's fish are gonna spawn around. That's when I'm gonna pick up the frog. So I throw 50-pound braid is what I like. You have to be careful when you go to 50 because sometimes you can break 50. I don't care what manufacturer you use, you can break 50. Like if you don't reach high. I know a lot of guys who like 65 and 80 and all that stuff, but I like 50. It casts further. It's more free and casts better, so that's what I prefer, and that's what I recommend. But colors-wise, you guys know you can just pick up about any frog. But that's a popping frog. I like that just because this time of year I can sort of chug it if I'm like in one spot, or I can walk it real well, and that's pretty good job. Okay, so last but not least, same sort of thing with a cover, but just making a reaction is a swim jig. More bluegill color, black blue. Swim jigs are really good, just generating bites. Again, you sort of need a little bit of cover for this. You can't really, I'm not gonna necessarily swim this just down the bank. This is gonna be around something, whether it's vegetation or it's wood or it's docks. A lot of times docks. a big pattern if you're out there on the water this year, and especially this month, make sure to take your time on the back sides of the docks, because that's where a lot of the fish will spawn. And that's something that I definitely, you know, wacky worm is an ideal situation for that, but a swim jig for me is more so a covering water, swimming it around. I can fish it super shallow. I can wind it real slow in some submerged vegetation as well and catch those fish that if they're not like maybe up there right now, they'll still bite that. But it is typically more cover oriented than anything else. So if you don't have a lot of cover, it might not be the bait for you, but it's definitely something that I throw braid on my swim jigs. I throw 30-pound braid. That's what I like. This is my 7.2 medium heavy, has a fast tip. So you want a fast tip with a lot more backbone in your rod when you're swimming a jig, because you'll see I pump it a lot or I swim it, and then basically what happens is that tip just loads up when they bite it, and then you just crack them and you got them. So I've sort of gone through a whole bunch of different swimming jigs. I don't really have one per se that I'm going to say that's the best. I just throw a whole bunch of different ones and just sort of switch it up depending on the watercolor, black, blues, your whites, and so that's sort of my rundown on that. I will say last rod that I did have up here was sort of piggybacking off the stick worm. It is a weightless stick worm. Okay, so if you can't do the wacky worm thing and you want to get away with actually pitching like a bigger, you know, with a Texas rig, I think sometimes we forget pitching a straight Texas rig weightless worm catches a lot of fish. And so that's something that, you know, you can do as well. If you're not big on the wacky worm thing and the spinning rod thing, you can just pitch a weightless, weightless stick worm like that. And then like the hook that I throw a lot for that is like a hybrid worm hook. This is a 3-aught. The reason behind it, this is actually a 4-aught on here. The reason I like a worm hook on this particular worm, or any worm for that matter, I'll show you real quick here. You'll see this is the red line worm hook. Here's your hook point right here, okay? And then here's your line tie. The key is having clearance between your line tie and your hook point. That's your gap between that and that. So you have a pretty good little gap right there. So when the fish bites, and this also is turned about 5 degrees, kicked out. So that way, when that fish bites, it just, this worm hook, this is the one I had a lot to do with, and it's on the design side. I mean, there's very few hooks that I've been saying, hey, look, if there's one of them that I'm like, you gotta try if you're a worm fisherman, this is the hook. It's unbelievable on that side. So that is my rundown. I gave y'all some what I think is game in this month version of what my top baits are, my top picks are for the month. Let me know how your month is going fishing wise. I just always like to, you know, I met so many people at Red Crest, so many people at the Classic Expo talking about they enjoy these videos. Some of you, maybe it's not for you, but for me, I love to try to give you guys a little bit of an understanding of what my mindset is, and some of the baits, like threw you guys a couple things that maybe I didn't talk about on the channel so far. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Wish me luck. We're gonna go try to catch a couple bass at Lake Murray.